At the start of the 20th century, we Lithuanians could relax a little. The Tsarist authorities lifted the press ban in 1904 and stopped imposing constraints on the activities of the Catholic Church. The revived Lithuanian intellectuals grew bolder in discussing the prospect of restoring the nation's independence. The first political parties were formed. The first party, the Lithuanian Social Democrats, was set up back in 1896, and sometime later, in 1902, the Lithuanian Democratic Party and then the Christian Democratic Party were established. In the meantime, the Russian Empire, which fought an unsuccessful war with Japan, starting with 1904, was rocked by a revolution. Workers' strikes and rallies soon turned into armed clashes with police and the army. At that turbulent time, in the autumn of 1905, Lithuanians decided to convene a congress in Vilnius. The committee, chaired by the leader of the Lithuanian Democrats, Dr. Jonas Basanavičius, was prepared to assume the organizational duties. Thus, in the first days of December, about 2,000 delegates from all over Lithuania came together in Vilnius. Representatives of Social Democrats, Democrats, Christian Democrats, National Democrats and other political parties arrived to the great Seimas of Vilnius. This is how the Congress was named. The Vilnius citizens of that time, among whom there were many Poles and Russians, wondered why so many Lithuanians were coming into the city. The Congress was nothing if not stormy. The majority of delegates requested secession from Russia, even by means of arms. Nevertheless, the majority voted for autonomy, with a parliament in Vilnius. There were also calls made for teaching children in the national language, not paying taxes, refusing to be conscripted into the army, and, if need be, going on strike. Resolutions of the Congress quickly reached all parts of Lithuania. Lithuanian peasants bestirred themselves. In many districts they revoked Russian institutions, elected new courts, even formed armed squads. In this way the Lithuanian countryside managed for some time to do away with the Russian authorities. In the longer run, however, the Tsarist regime managed to suppress the unrest, and punitive platoons re-established the Russian authority in the Lithuanian countryside. Frightened by the outbreak, Tsar Nicholas II decided to soften the regime and declared the elections to the Russian State Duma. The Lithuanian Social Democratic Party took an active part in the election. Prior to 1917, 4 Dumas were convened in Russia and 22 Lithuanians were elected to them. The Duma, however, never assumed real power, and as a result, Lithuanians were not in a position to change the situation in their country. World War I, which started in August 1914, quickly involved the inhabitants of Lithuania into its bloody whirlwind. After battles which lasted more than a year, nearly all of the territory of Lithuania was occupied by Kaiserist Germany. Even though part of our intellectuals, together with other inhabitants, fled to Russia, the issue of Lithuania's independence continued to be pursued in German-occupied Lithuania. The German authorities plundered and exploited the war-torn country, which they themselves called Ober-Ost, with utmost cruelty. Seeing, however, that recent war developments were not favorable to them, the Germans started negotiating with our politicians. The German government expressed a wish that Lithuania should accede to Germany, retaining the rights of a cultural autonomy. In 1917, we received a permit from the Germans to convene the Vilnius Conference. We intended to discuss the issue of Lithuanian independence, and to this end, our delegates elected the Council of Lithuania. It was chaired by Antanas Smetona, Steponas Kairys, Vladas Mironas, and others. The Council of Lithuania published its resolutions in the political newspaper Lietuvos Aidas. A favorable situation to declare independence for Lithuania emerged in October 1917, when, having usurped power in Russia, the Bolsheviks started peace talks with Germany. It appeared that at the time the Germans needed a document stating the wish of Lithuanians to form a union with Germany. That was the reason why on the 11th of December 1917 the Council of Lithuania signed the Declaration of Independence of Lithuania. It proclaimed that the independent state of Lithuania with the capital Vilnius was being restored. At the same time, it stated that the restored state would maintain strong union ties with the state of Germany. The 11th December Act, however, was nothing more than a declaration. The Germans continued controlling the country without showing the slightest intention to keep their promise to recognize the independence of Lithuania. Then the Council of Lithuania, chaired by Jonas Basanavičius, resolved to declare a new act of independence. This time, the act failed to mention any ties with Germany. Enraged, the Germans seized all the Lietuvos Aidas copies with the printed text of the Act, but the declaration in printed leaflets was still distributed in Lithuania secretly. The declared independence, however, still had to be implemented, and Lithuania's freedom had to be defended by military means.